Hey everyone, we're going to look at the game between Nepomniachtchi versus Magnus Carlsen today, played the other day in Zagreb. A few people have recommended this to me, and it seems that Magnus Carlsen may have been influenced by maybe Alpha Zero or Leela Chess Zero in this game. So we're going to look at it from Magnus's perspective, because he's black here, Nepomniachtchi is white. In this game, the opening doesn't go really that well for black. There's a lot of holes in Magnus's position, but we'll get into that in a bit. So Nepo plays e4, Carlsen plays c5. After knight to f3, knight c6, knight c3, and e5. So we get a Sicilian with bishop c4 now from Nepo, attacking maybe f7, probably threatening to play knight g5 at some point. And here Magnus now plays a really unusual move. The usual moves in this position are bishop to e7 or d6, but Magnus now opts for g6, which is very unusual indeed. And I think it's unusual and given a question mark in the opening book just due to the fact that it's got lots of holes in black's position. If we just look, this f6 square, this d6 square look really weak at the moment. So white plays d3, and simple idea here is to play knight g5. So white's just open this bishop up to protect the g5 square, and I'm going to try and hop this knight in. Carlsen of course plays h6 to defend that, and Nepo now plays h4, launching the pawn, and maybe stopping black from playing g5 and trying to consolidate. Carlsen plays d6, and Nepo pushes the pawn further up with h5, just gaining more space, and of course Magnus is forced to play g5 here. So what do we notice from the start? Well, white's dominating the light squares at the moment. Maybe black could pop their bishop into g4 because there's no h-pawn to shift it, but the fact is white's dominating these two squares and their bishop is just very nice at the moment, attacking f7. So white's got a quite comfortable game. So I'd say here bishop g4 is a threat, and maybe that's why Nepo now plays knight to h2 to stop this idea, and maybe try and unleash the queen as well to f3 at some point. Carlsen develops with bishop to g7, and white plonks the knight into g4. I think bishop takes g4 here from black would just be suicidal, because they wouldn't have a light squared piece to deflect this c4 bishop. So I don't recommend taking for black. Instead Magnus just develops knight ge7, maybe threatening to play f5 now. But white plays knight to e3, just covering this f5 square, and also threatening to jump into d5 with one of the knights. Carlsen castles here, bishop d2 is played by white to develop, and king h8. So black is definitely threatening to play f5 in this position, having moved their king into the corner. And Nepo plays a really strong move now, just g4, and yes, I call it in loads of squares here, but the point was just to show that white's dominating the white squares, highlighted in green, and actually black is dominating the dark squares, which I've highlighted in yellow. You'll see how important the domination of the dark squares is for black later in the game. Carlsen plays rook b8, maybe threatening b5 ideas, but white plays a4 to stop any of that nonsense, and Carlsen plonks their knight into a lovely d4 square. But white now does exactly the same and puts their knights into d5. Carlsen captures on d5, white recaptures, and both players have now got these knights nicely placed in the centre, but Carlsen now wants to manoeuvre to f4, where it would be a tastier square. So after knight to e6, white now blocks everything up with f3, but Stockfish now highly recommends playing a move like castles, and I just had a look at this quick variation where black plays knight f4 here, because white can actually counter with b4, and we get into this position after b6, takes, knight to e3. Black can play bishop e6, and white's forced to play a move like queen f3. And this long variation continues with queen d7 and king h2, where white's going to try and protect this g4 pawn, and this is quite a mess actually. After rook b7, bishop a6, rook b6, bishop b5 attacking the queen e7, bishop a5 and rook b7. White can play bishop c6, and after rook b2, rook fb1, there comes a trade. After black doubles, white recaptures, captures, and plays bishop b5. So this all could have occurred if white didn't play f3 and just castled instead. And Stockfish 11 actually gives white a slightly better here, but black's got a really nicely placed knight to f4. The only problem is the bishop on g7 is very weak. White also has nicely placed bishops at the moment, but the bishop on e6 for black is no slouch. But yeah, I was just wondering what would happen if white did something different, but instead he played f3, and Carlsen just jumps the knight into f4 now. Of course, if white captures this, e takes f4 is just really strong for black, and black actually equalises quite easily, attacking the b2 pawn. c3 is probably forced. Black can play bishop e6 to castle, king f2 maybe. After a6, white can play move like a5. After captures, this looks like a very dead even game here. Both sides have got the opposite coloured bishops. And this should probably be a draw. But after knight to f4, Nepo plays queen b1 here, hoping to play queen a2. Bishop e6 is played by Carlsen. Nepo plays queen a2, and black plays queen to d7. Maybe threatening to sacrifice on g4 here with the bishop. So what happens if white plays a nothing move? Let's say queen a3, because that's not really a good move. Black can actually win a pawn with bishop takes d5. If bishop takes, knight takes, e takes, white can play f5 and completely wreck white's structure. And of course if white captures this, rook takes is really strong, and black's just going to threaten to take these pawns, and these white squared pawns are all tremendously weak. Black definitely has the advantage. So white does have to be careful in this position. For this reason, Nepo now plays rook to g1, stopping any sacrificing ideas on bishop takes g4. Carlsen plays b6. Simple idea is just if white plays a5, he can respond with b5. So b6 is a very solid move. White plays bishop c3 here, and Carlsen now captures that very strong knight on d5 with their bishop. Bishop takes, and I don't think black can recapture this bishop with knight takes, just because the queen can recapture, and that's very strong for white. Instead, Carlsen just plays a6, preparing maybe b5. So white's got a very strong bishop on d5 at the moment, but the bishop on c3 is just as weak as the bishop on g7, and that knight on f4 is very strong for black. For this reason, white plays bishop d2, maybe threatening to take on f4 at some point, which would be a wise choice. Carlsen plays queen e7. Rook f1 now is played by white. Carlsen finally plays b5. And after a takes, Nepo plays king to f2. And Carlsen continues with c4. So what happens if white just captures on c4? Well, if d takes c4, b takes c4 and bishop takes, black's actually 2 pawns down. Well, the position is given as equal here. This is due to a move like f5, where if e takes f5, black can play rook fc8. And after a move like bishop b3, black starts opening up lines with like e4 here, unleashing this g7 bishop. And if a move like, let's say bishop c3 for instance, just bishop takes, b takes, and e3 is really strong. So even though white is a lot of pawns up, black's got tremendously nice pieces and a lot of dynamic play. Similar to AlphaZero's play, you might say. So giving up all those pawns with c4 is very similar to AlphaZero's style. Instead, Nepo now plays bishop takes f4 here. And of course, Carlsen recaptures with the e-pawn to unleash this g7 bishop. And let's be honest, this looks like a dead draw, because both sides have got opposite coloured bishops. And the position's really closed up. White plays rook a d1 here. And I wonder if you can find Carlsen's tremendously strong move. In typical AlphaZero and Leela Chess Zero style, Carlsen actually plays f5 here, opening up the lines. And Nepo actually made a mistake here. E takes f5 would have actually been fine, but maybe he was worried about queen to e3 check, king g2 and queen e2. But after like king h3 it's fine for white. It's actually given as dead even by Stockfish. I think maybe he was worried about c takes d3. Now after c takes d3, maybe black can capture on b2. It's probably a dead draw, so maybe white didn't want this. But actually after queen takes and bishop takes, this is actually a decent position for white. Probably a draw because of the opposite coloured bishop, so maybe he didn't want to go into this. So after f5, white actually captured with the g pawn, so g takes f5. And I wonder if you can find Carlsen's continuation here. I'll give you 5 seconds and see if you can figure it out. I'll pause the video if you like. So yeah, maybe you were tempted by bishop d4 check, which is still a very strong option. But if you found g4, then you're playing like a super grandmaster here. Carlsen played g4, threatening to play queen h4. If white captures on g4, black could play bishop d4 check. After king e2, just play queen h4. And the idea is just to take on g4 or play queen h2, and white is just absolutely losing the position. For instance, if I move like, I don't know, rook d2, just bishop e3, and black's just controlling all these dark squares. And queen g4 ideas will come next. And if I move like king d1, just takes. And if let's say king c1 to run, just bishop takes d2 and king takes. So white wouldn't want this position, it's just awful. So after g4, Nepo played d4 here. Carlsen played queen h4 check. And the only move really is to play king e2 here, running away from the queen. Carlsen plays queen h2 check. After rook f2, g takes f3. White actually resigned in this position. And that was a really quick game over. So why did white resign? Well, if king takes f3 here, Carlsen can play queen takes h5, check, and just going to win the rook. So after takes, queen takes d1, black's just the whole rook up. So after g takes f3, white could maybe play king e1, but after queen g1, this is just game over as well. For instance, if white blocks this with rook f1, queen e3's checkmate. And if king d2 here, obviously white just takes on f2 and wins another rook. The king c1, queen e3 check, king b1. Black's just going to run this pawn down the board and get another queen, so that's effectively over. So this is how white went from dead drawn to dead lost in a matter of moves. And there's no doubt that the idea with c4 especially is similar to ideas from AlphaZero and Leela Chess Zero. I reckon Carlsen must know about them and definitely using them to his advantage. And unfortunately f5's a great move, by the way, but it's just the fact that Nepo missed e takes f5. He was just worried about maybe drawing the game. But yeah, it's just amazing how after g takes f5, white's completely losing after g4. And you probably expect a strong player to not fall foul to this. But this was a great move by Carlsen, and even though he had a crazy weak opening, he still managed to pull it out of the bag. And apparently he played this f5 move in 20 seconds, which is even more impressive. So he must just have a feel for these type of positions and know when it works. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this game. Please drop me a like or comment, or subscribe to the channel if you want to watch more chess videos in the future. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much, guys.